Through Karachi streets drives the Quaid-e-Azam, Mohammad Ali Jinnah, Pakistan's first Governor-General. It's Karachi's first day of independence, and the crowds are out to greet him and Earl Mountbatten. On his last day as Viceroy, he is here to inaugurate the transfer of power. To the members of Pakistan's first Constituent Assembly, Lord Louis reads a message from the King proclaiming the new dominion. Britain and Pakistan part as friends, he said, both members of the British Commonwealth of Nations. "600 miles away in Delhi, Independence Day was also a day of rejoicing. Tumultuous crowds filled the streets, celebrating, singing and laughing. Police were called out many times to restore order, where everyone ran wild with joy.
We lived in a place called Rajkot in Kathiawar, which is in western India, for very west of India. Life was great until 45, 46. Hindus, Muslims, everybody lived together. When we were living, there were only about 7 to 8% Muslims and about 88% Hindus. Our biggest problem was there were two main political parties in India, All India Congress and All India Muslim League. My father was very much interested in politics. He was General Secretary of Kathiawar Congress, and then he changed to Muslim League in 1939 with Mr. Jinnah. So we naturally became very marked people as far as Hindus were concerned.
Life was very, very easy going for all of us. We had a nice house, cars, servants, friends, and they worked hard in those days, 7 days a week. Time didn't matter, but it was all a wonderful life, very rosy.
Everybody had a house, big or small, good or bad, but everybody had a house in the village.
And there was enough money and food and...
Oh yeah, for the family was enough money and food.
My father didn't want to leave at all, but Mr. Devar, who was the president of Indian National Congress, and Mr. Joshi, who was the secretary, they were all good family friends. They came to my father, I think it was June, July 1947, and they said that please, you don't want to go, you stay here, but at least let your brother take your family out. If you are right that you are born here, you are right here, you can die here, but we don't want your family killed as well. We cannot take any more responsibilities. So I think in June, July, my father made up his mind that we'll all go.
Slowly, the news started percolating that there was violence in India at that time, as far as I know. And news was coming in. It wasn't Pakistan by the time I was there. And news was coming in that people are migrating, mass migrations taking place. And I remember going down in my bike to the famous Lawrence Gardens, by the way, a beautiful place. And on the way, I saw a cyclist who had been stabbed, lying on the ground, you see. He was a Sikh person. Now, there's nobody could see around there who did it. Traffic was going absolutely normally. Just nobody seemed to bother.
The rains come to India. It's the monsoon season. Fields are flooded, rivers overflow their banks. And all the time the bloodshed goes on. As the new dominions of Pakistan and India take over their own affairs, communal hatred flares up in the Punjab. Fleeing from their looted, blood-stained towns comes a new exodus, 1 million displaced persons. Independence has not yet brought them peace. Rejoicing turned quickly into horror and mourning. Throughout this vast land, Hindus and Muslims seek safety in new surroundings. Peace-loving people, theirs is the real tragedy. The fortunate few flee in army transports or in buses. For the masses, it's the weary trail of the road. Carrying their few possessions, they flee from savagery and butchery that has never been exceeded even in India's stormy history. People become refugees overnight. Pakistan and India each say they are determined to stop the wholesale rioting. But meanwhile, the exodus continues.
Yeah, the saddest part was they hadn't declared whether the city of Lahore, where we were, on the north side of the Ravi, was going to be in India or in Pakistan. And that was the feeling that you didn't know where you were. At that time it was neither India nor Pakistan. There weren't any British troops there. There were Gurkha troops. They wouldn't trust Hindu troops or Muslim troops in those days. So they were Gurkha troops. But they just came in a big lorry, wandered around the place, got in and went away.
Leaving India, the partition came about on the 17th, 15th, 14th, 15th of August in 1947. So I think we left home round about 6th of September. Had to leave the village and moved over to the main road, which goes to the district headquarters, or on the way to Pakistan, sort of. Stayed there for about 4 weeks. Because we had no transport, so we had to use somebody else's ox cart, whatever we had, few suitcases.
There was violence, but I saw a train load of people. Once I went to the station, outside the station, they were massacred. But who did it? I wouldn't like to put a finger on. Not the people I knew. They would never do a thing like that.
So there were 2 launches going. In one, we parked most of the baggage. And in Dwarka, there was a charitable refugee camp where we had stayed. Because all the Muslims who wanted to go from Kathiawar to Pakistan, that was one of the routes. So we were in that refugee camp, and when we were going, a lot of other people came with us. I don't remember the exact size of the motor launch, but I'll be surprised it was much bigger than 40 foot long. And
How many people were on the launch?
oh, unfortunately too many. We could hardly sit. There were 2 little cabins in which we put all the women, and on the deck we're just sitting outside in the elements, and the sea turned very rough.
My friends came one day, this was about 3 months after the partition, and they said, Shankar, I think you should go. Otherwise we will be killed, and you will be killed as well. It was a very emotional experience for me. I said, I don't want you to be killed. They said, well, these are not the people who are here. They're the people who are coming, having suffered in India and being thrown out from there. And if they see anybody who's in their way, they'll kill them. All my friends at the dental school, a lot of Muslim people, they said, I think it's time you went now. So they came to the house and they said, right, are you ready? I said, yes, I've got a car, so I'll drive it. I went and sat in the car. Would you believe it? It wouldn't start.
Was it made clear to you that if you stayed where you were, that was going to be unacceptable?
Oh yeah. There was no way they would have been killed. Most of the people been killed who stayed back 5, 6 in those weeks.
So you just had to go?
Oh yeah.
How did you feel? Because you were only 18 or 19 at that time. What did you think?
I had to accept it. We fought for Pakistan. I fought for Pakistan in my young days when I was in college, so I had to accept it.
Nobody panicked at the airport. You stood in a line and the planes were shuttling back and forth, back and forth.
Was it crowded on the plane?
Yes, no seats. You sat on the floor. That's how they took double the number of people, I suppose. It was only a 35, 40-minute flight, nothing much to it.
But did you know where you were going?
Yes, yeah. They said to Delhi. Well, that was the nearest airport you could go.
Had you ever been there before?
Yes. We went to Delhi. My uncle was in Delhi. because my father's firm, they had a branch there. So my uncle was the manager of that branch. So I knew where I was going.
And it was really frightening because the sea was going up and down. And of all the things, I think it was late at night. Because we left one afternoon and we arrived in Karachi following afternoon. So it was about 22 to 23 hours journey. But during that time, there was a pregnant woman on the boat. And she started screaming, etc. And it looked as if she was going to deliver the baby. So my father called me, he said, "Where is my visiting bag?" I found it. And I stood outside the cabin and he went in and he said, "Pass me this, pass me that."
See, it was hard times. People, government made arrangements, people had relatives already in part of Pakistan. So some people didn't want to go certain places, but government pushed them to that side. Where the Sikhs moved from the villages, these people were allocated houses, lands over there. So they had to make do with what they had or what they got.
We went to a refugee camp where we got 3 rooms for a week or so. Then my father found 2 flats with about 5 rooms very close to the dispensary. So we, the boys, me and my brothers, etc., we used to sleep out on the footpath in those days. Because that was the only place left when everybody...
You literally slept on the street?
Yeah, on the footpath, yeah. For, I think, first 3-4 weeks. We finally got in the evening to the dispensary. Now, the dispensary was on the ground floor. And there were 4 stories of flats upstairs. And that was entirely occupied by Hindus. And those Hindus were very frightened. And they were very worried that, oh, Muslims have come, we'll have a problem. This was in Karachi, in Pakistan. So they shut the water from upstairs, so we couldn't get water, we had to call the water.
Well, I moved to Bombay, finished my dental qualification. And then I thought, well, what shall I do? I had an uncle in Jaipur. We had lots of uncles. He was in Jaipur, the big city, beautiful. So he asked, "Come along here, there's a need for a dentist. There's a new big hospital and you may get an honorary position there," which I managed to get.
I think it was late December or January. The riots started in Karachi. Hindu-Muslim riots. And the whole of our building was full of Hindus. So me, my elder cousin, etc., we were posted as guards on the door. And we barricaded the entrance to the building completely with a lot of big poles and we stood outside all night so nobody could come in, one at a time. And touch wood, nobody attacked that building. Refugee camps were very dirty, most of them. And the life was not very good in it. But the worst story which I came across after coming to Karachi, I think it was in 49, Mr. Jinnah stopped all immigration from India of Muslims. There were only, either you could come by air or by sea, but you needed correct papers. But if you had no papers, there was only one land crossing left open, and that was Khokra Par in Sindh Desert. And there, unfortunately, cholera epidemic started. So they were looking for volunteers to go and help. And I volunteered, and God knows how many people must have died there. Because at night we used to walk, and we don't know how many dead bodies we walked over even. The deaths were in thousands, every day.
But you were a very young man in that situation.
Yeah, very young. I would be 17, 18, 17.
I mean, these events, having to move a country and then, you know, you were working in a refugee camp where it was horrific.
Oh, it was terrible.
Did it change you, do you think?
Yes, it made me realize that what human life is worth in situations like that. And it really was worth nothing.
The dean of the college, of the dental school, the first day when I went to see him, he said, Iyer, I don't like Indians. Now that was my first reception from the dean of the dental school. I don't like Indians. So I said, I don't know why, but have I done anything wrong to you? So he said, no, nothing at all. But there were some Indians at Newcastle who, one or two of them failed, and they make a terrible row outside the dean's office, and we were absolutely disgusted with their behaviour. So I said, well, if I haven't done wrong, you can't blame me for it. So he said, no, you go upstairs and get on with it, you see. So I went upstairs, and what do you know, within a week he called me down, and he said, right, I want you to do the degree in orthodontics, and not only that, I will want you to stay in this country, so I'll get you to join the side course which will fast track you into the professional acceptance. The the degree you get in orthodontics is not a practicing degree, so this will call you for a practicing degree.
You decided to come to England.
Yeah.
Why was that?
Because our father was here. My father was here. He came in 1939 first. Well, stayed here all during the war. Went back to India in 40 and 45. And then came back in June 47 before the partition. So there was nothing to do there. No income, no jobs, no nothing. So it was, luckily, it was a chance to come here, and that I did.
We arrived at Liverpool one evening and we disembarked the next morning, and we took the train to Manchester. Now, it came into Manchester Central Station, the train. I had introductions to two firms in Manchester, and they were both just off Whitworth Street. So I asked one person where is Whitworth Street, and walked down Oxford Street rather. Then asked another fellow. The first place we were going to was Beaver House. It's just off Whitworth Street. So this fellow walked with us from Palace Theatre. It was only about 50 yards or so, and showed us where it was. Then he wanted some money. So naturally I didn't pay him anything, but what surprised me and shocked me was that, good God, generally talking to the people in England in the last few hours after landing at Liverpool, I said, how on earth these people ruled us for 200 years? I said, our fathers and forefathers must have been really stupid to be ruled by these people.
But Indians in Scotland, they must have been pretty rare.
No, a reasonable number. There were a lot of what we called Johnnies, they were hawkers, They had a suitcase and they went in the villages with silk stockings, nylon, which was rare in those days in this country. In fact, I brought some nylon stockings from Boston to give it to a friend of somebody in Scotland, in Edinburgh. And that's how they started businesses.
I remember he taking me by train to Earlstown, and looking out, it was raining, it was miserable and cold, and whatever I got to hear.
What were the people like?
Well, then my ethnic community, host community didn't meet much of people than those, because of few not families, but few people living in the same area, which you used to meet and talk to and live with.
After I was thrown out of the college for lack of attendance, I kept on looking for a textile job. At that time, this would be in 1956, and textile industry was dying here, and it was very difficult to get a textile technologist job. So I kept on looking, and after I think it was 2 or 3 months, I realized that the amount of money my father had spent on my education for 3 years would have kept at least 10 or 12 families going in Pakistan for that amount of time. And I felt personally very guilty that I've let everybody down. So I decided one day that whatever job comes, I'll take it. I said, if it's dustbinman, I'll do dustbinman's job, but I'll make something out of my life. Got onto the bus, and I must have seen that advert hundreds and thousands of times. Bus conductors required urgently, 55 Piccadilly. I went there. Luckily that was one of the recruitment days, so I got employed straight away. And from Tuesday I started my conductor's training at Princess Road Depot and became a bus conductor. 2 months I think after being conductor, I applied for a driver's position. So I had to do, you had to have a special PSV license, so you had to do training for that. And that was done at Hydro. And we did the bus training, and touch wood, I got through on my passed my PSV test first time, and became a bus driver, because driver's wages were slightly higher. I think in those days our basic wage was, when I started it was just under under £8, and then it went up to £8 5 and 6 pence, something like that for driver, and conductor was 5 shillings less. And during my bus days I had very good time at the depot, and particularly with the trade union. You had to be member of Transport and General Workers Union to work on Manchester City Corporation Transport Department, and I took a lot of interest in the trade union activities. I passed the union exams, and I got on so well they actually offered me a scholarship to Ruskin.
What was it that attracted you to bus driver, failed textile student, Ameen Marfani?
It was his persistence, I think, because I didn't want to get married at that point, and he pursued me relentlessly.
Our parents both were very much against it, both her parents, and I went to ask her father for the permission, and it was refused. And I asked my father for permission, it was refused.
What did you do?
Got married.
Although it didn't take long for them to come round.
But it must have been very hurtful and quite isolating at the time.
Yes, it was, yes. It was. And but after we sort of got together again, it was ideal, really. And then I went to Pakistan, and his parents were particularly his father, were really marvellous with me.
I must say about my father-in-law, great man. He said, let's have a look at your car. So we went out looking at the car. When both our husbands were under the bonnet, he said, we forget what's happened before, start afresh. I said, okay with me. And then it was never mentioned, ever. I was working with a textile firm, and I had gone to Spain to get buying cloth and examining it and sorting it down. I phoned my wife. We were living in a bedsitter in Manley Road in Wally Range, and she had seen a flat on Withington Road, very nice flat, purpose-built flat in a modern block. So I told her, I said, please sign the lease and take it. She still waited for me to come back, and we went to see the flat. We liked it very much. Naturally, we were living in a bedsitter, and there we had 3 rooms, our own bathroom, kitchen, sitting room, and a bedroom. The woman showed us the flat, and I said, oh yes, we'll take it. She said, I'm sorry, we don't take coloured people.
You know, what we were doing seemed normal. But I didn't like the hostility. But the other thing was, the hostility came from uneducated, to put it bluntly, lower class people, whereas from my own group, if you like, I didn't get any problems like that.
When did you get married to Lily?
The date I won't tell you. That's a bit of a secret.
How long have you been married, roughly?
Oh, well.
You don't want to tell me that either.
Well, I would say... can I leave that out?
Okay.
If you don't
Well,
mind.
all right, that's fine. But what is the secret of such a long-lasting marriage? in your view?
Long-lasting marriage. It's every day quite a big row. Yeah, okay. It's you marry for better or for worse, and you get best. You get everything in it. You know.
I think partly it's determination. You know, you decide you're together for life, and that's it. And you don't accept that you're going to split up. And I think it has to be from both sides.
Well, Britain is very slowly becoming a multiracial society. I was hoping it would become a multiracial society in my lifetime. I can't see it, but it's going towards it. And I'm sure a time will come where colour bar will be a thing of the past in England, definitely.